We're talking about stress. This is a discussion based around these new scream clubs that are popping up in London and other cities and around the world, indeed, where people meet up in a park and just scream their heads off to relieve stress in a rather social manner. Would this help you? Noel, thank you so much for joining us. Now, what do you think of this screaming malarkey? Do you think it's a good idea to relieve stress? Good evening.
No, it made me think, when your producer contacted me, I thought, oh, it's the House of Commons, right? Okay, because that's what they do. Like, stress is, I think, really important to understand what's underneath it and think hormonally. And there are probably going to be different responses to these types of events, and partly gender differences as well, and so there's quite a few things to think about. So hormonally, stress are things like cortisol and adrenaline, and in the sort of scream situation, you're talking about testosterone as well. And if you think about it as an activity, it's more like the sort of thing a high-end athlete, a very successful athlete, will do to get themselves worked up and ready to do their top performance, because it will produce those types of hormones in the body and get you to peak sort of performance. And so you'll see athletes doing that, and you'll see fighters doing that. So it's not going to reduce stress in that sense.
You mean it would increase stress because it kind of gets you going more?
Yes, without a doubt. It'll increase stress hormones. Now, there's the counteractive to that is that anything you do socially is a good idea generally. And so engaging in social interaction produces sort of reward hormones, which reduce stress and sort of combat stress hormones. And also, from the description, I didn't know the full description, but if you're travelling and going somewhere, you've got the sort of ancillary benefits of exercise and getting out and about and all that sort of stuff. And actually, it also sounds like people have a good laugh, and laughter, of course, is an antidote to stress. So there are potential benefits in that sense, but the screaming itself, no, definitely not. It's going to increase. And there's that sort of, there's that belief that people have, isn't there, that stress is a bit like a steam building up inside you, and you need to take the lid off every now and then. But of course, it's nothing like that. Stress is these hormones, and particularly things like cortisol.
More like a fire that you need to chuck a bit of water on then.
More like that, and you need to have strategies that work these hormones out of your body, and also have strategies that mean that you get less triggered. Now, the gender differences are this, so and maybe just personality differences as well. So if you're the sort of person that isn't very good at getting in touch with the ability to say no assertively or even aggressively, if you're unable to do that, then doing these types of exercises actually will help, because you will become more comfortable with those sort of feelings in your body. And so I can see situations in which people might be attracted because they're often very shy and withdrawn, and then they can get out of their shell a bit and they can get comfortable with those really uncomfortable sort of adrenalized feelings. And if they're doing it in a socially acceptable way, then there could be benefits there. And like, it can be very stressful not being able to say no, for example. So if you're at work and you're not able to say to your colleagues or to your boss, no, I don't like that, I don't want that to happen, that's abusive, and we call it the angry doormat, if people are walking all over you, that in itself can be very stressful. So there's a potential there for sort of
because we think about the classic sort of stressed person as being sort of someone walking around red faced, sort of teeth clenched and so on. But I think there are people, aren't there, who just sort of sit on their stress, and you wouldn't know anything about it. They're the ducks who are sort of paddling furiously underwater, and by the paddling I mean their adrenal glands are kind of going great guns, and they're actually feeling inside
exactly right.
But I wonder, I think there are sometimes people who don't even acknowledge it themselves. They don't even sort of acknowledge the stress themselves. They're just sort of they're just kind of sitting on it all, whereas maybe that's not too healthy.
It's a really good point. And sort of having these physiological experiences, these quite extreme physiological experiences, can be quite good for some people to get in touch with their bodies and go, oh, that's my body, that's how it feels when I do this. There's also maybe gender differences, and these are culturally ascribed differences that in general, guys are taught to be aggressive with these feelings and women are taught to be submissive. I know it's very broad brush, so please feel free to shoot me down in flames. So for guys in particular, I would say going to these types of things, if you're an angry person, this is not going to help you manage anger. Quite the opposite. Absolutely the opposite. And you should be looking at doing some very, very different things. But there is some research, and this is interesting research around working with men specifically, that engaging things like mock battles and then having support afterwards to facilitate offloading and talking about the experience.
What? Sorry, mock battles? What are you talking about? Sort of medieval jousting?
You know, there was nothing mock about that. There wouldn't be much left of me.
What do you mean by a mock battle then?
So controlled things so in some treatment centres, for example, they'll do Muay Thai, but not allow full contact, and they'll be working with angry young men who have some trauma issues, etc. And then getting them in a very controlled sort of martial arts environment like that, where there's no real contact, but there is a mock fight going on. Nobody's really going to get hurt. And then afterwards, decompressing with those young men facilitates the ability to bond more and produces this sort of bonding hormone or chemical. Similar if you think about something like the football terraces and similar type of stuff. And again, it can be quite dangerous in those environments, but actually if you look at guys and how they behave there, they get involved in these mock battles, the football pitches, and they watch their teams, and afterwards they're really close and there's lots of physical contact and hugs, and it often does allow guys in particular to have that ability to hug and hold, and it's the hugging and holding and the sharing of feelings that's important, and that seems to be a doorway into it.
Okay, but just for those, for those who can't access the sort of martial arts or whatever in a centre, or don't go to football matches and so on, for the average person who just feels like, actually, I can feel my shoulders inching towards my ears, I realise that when I go to bed my back teeth are kind of gripped together, I'm just feeling generally a little bit tense. If someone gives me a massage on my shoulders, they're like, oh crikey, you're a bit tense. But for people who just carry around stress in general, what are the best proven strategies for dealing with that?
So you've just described them fantastically, which is body scanning, so noticing what the signs and symptoms of stress are. And they are musculature tension, because the cortisol tensing your muscles, ready to run away or have a fight. They are increased raised breathing, raised heart rate.
No, sorry, Noel, what I was saying is what are the best strategies for dealing with it? Not what are the symptoms of it, but what are the best strategies for dealing with it? Spotting it is
the first strategy, so knowing what it is, and then using strategies such as relaxation techniques, using strategies such as rest during the day, using strategies such as mindfulness breathing strategies, and using your mouth to talk to people about what's going on inside you. When we talk to another person about the stresses inside our head, we get loads of reward hormones because we're being pro-social. The other one, and this is linked to this specifically, is actually going and doing some exercise. So high intensity exercise is also a fantastic way to manage stress if you're allowed to do that. So I would always encourage people, and I've often said to patients, go and do some kickboxing lessons and do some boxing lessons.
Opposite somewhere, Noel, that actually if you get, if you're stressed, it's not a great thing to kind of get your heart rate going even more. Am I wrong?
No, it's because inside your muscles cortisol is injected into your muscles to get them ready for fight or flight. And so you need to do something that burns the cortisol off, essentially. So a sprint will do it, high energy exercise will do it. It's
literally like burning off of fuel. If you have a swim, you're just burning off that excess.
Because it just won't wash out of your system. Adrenaline goes into your bloodstream, increases your heart rate. But if you wait 45 minutes and you don't have any more triggers, it just washes out naturally. Cortisol doesn't. It just gets injected and it sits there. That's why you have that sort of strange muscle feeling when you've been frightened.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, Noel McDermott, psychotherapist and founder of Mental Health Works. We're talking about stress. This is a discussion based around these new scream clubs that are popping up in London and other cities and around the world, indeed, where people meet up in a park and just scream their heads off to relieve stress in a rather social manner. Would this help you?